Well, welcome everybody. This is, I was just saying to Laverne earlier, I don't think too many people are going to come today. That's what you get for thinking. There's a lot of new faces here to me, and some of you are familiar with me and some of you aren't, and I just wanted to share a little bit about myself for just a minute. I'm not a teacher. I don't feel like I'm one of those that is a public speaker by any means, and I'm not really even a student of A Course in Miracles anymore. I'm a practitioner, and I feel like we all come together to just go deeper into that experience of what the Course is pointing us to. So I feel like I really want to get on level playing ground here. I might have a mic and be sitting in this nice comfortable chair, but I really feel like we're all joined in the heart, and that's what brings us together. And I think it's so beautiful that it seems to be expanding, because I never set out anymore to do anything or to try to accomplish anything or to plan anything. And I think a couple people asked, are you going to do gatherings when you're here in Ahihic? And I was like, okay, well, there's the invitation of the spirit, right? It's not really personal. And so I've learned over the years to follow what is being laid out in front of me, which is really an easy way to live, because I don't have to try to figure it out. And then somebody asked me, are you going to put it out on social media? And I said, no, we'll just see who shows up, right? And then people started showing up. And so then I put it out as an invitation here locally to just come together, just to come together and for an hour and just be together and really open up that heart and that mind to the miracles that the Course in Miracles. Is everybody here familiar? Everybody here familiar with the Course in Miracles? Pretty much. Okay, good. So it says a lot of things, right? It says a lot of things, a lot of promises. And I've really put those promises to the test in my life. I knew from a very young age, I knew from 12 years old, it's like I woke up one day and said, there's something not quite right with this world, at 12. So while my friends were out playing and doing whatever, I was in trying to figure out the meaning of life. And so it's always been with me. I kind of came in with this deep mystical call and could always sense that there was just something not quite right with the way I was perceiving things. And so when the Course came in, I, of course, like many of us probably, was looking at many different pathways and really mixing and matching and, kind of the New Age smorgasbord of spirituality, which is beautiful. It's a helpful stepping stone. And but I eventually settled into the spirit actually telling me, you need to choose one. Didn't really tell me which one, just choose one. For God's sakes, just choose one and practice it. And so that was the Course in Miracles. And it talks a lot about happiness. And I think that really that's all I have to extend now is this love and this happiness that comes from an authentic place of doing the work and being on the floor many times of the ego just, right on top of me. I lived for 10 years with David Hoffmeister, so pretty bright, shining light. Laverne lived with in the same community for about 8 years. So between us, we've been through kind of the refiner's fire, I guess you would say. The refiner's fire. Letting go of ideas of I think I know something, letting go of ideas of that I know mind, which is so strong because it's so scared. The I know mind is that which thinks it knows anything at all. Now that's going way over to the other side of the bridge, on the other side of the bridge. And while we're crossing that bridge to the real world, it can be pretty intense if we're serious about our path. And if we're serious about actually letting go into the forgiven mind, there's just so much programming. We're so programmed with fear. And it's all dressed up in these ideas of security, and it's actually everything of this world, and the basis of that is fear. And Jesus talks about the ring of fear. It's at the very, very base of everything that we perceive until we start to change our perception from fear to love. And I think that's really certainly my prayer, for a continue prayer for myself and for everybody that I work with, and for, that's my prayer for our gathering, is just to open up more and more to that love. It's real, it's there, it's always there, but we've covered it over so completely with our own layers of self-delusion. Not intentionally, of course. We came in and seemingly it started right away with the programming, and our parents and whoever we were brought up with did the best they could. They really did the best they could. And so it's all about forgiveness, right? We really teach two things in Alchemy of Awakening, and that's projection and forgiveness. And people might get tired of hearing that, but I'm telling you what, it is the key. Once you realize that the projection of this world all stems from the tiny mad idea of separation from our source, then we can start to turn the tables on a stressful life, a fearful life, a life of concern and worry and dread and aloneness. It's built into the system, right? The system is just doing what it does. It's doing what it does. It can't do anything different. While we believe in it, it can't possibly do anything different. And so our practice of forgiveness, which is, I loved it when the Spirit downloaded to me that was all I was to talk about for a while, is projection and forgiveness. And it was so beautiful because we've had retreats all over the world, and a lot of people that we've known for many years, a lot of people that have studied the Course for many years. And at the end of the retreat, they're like, wow, I just didn't, it never fully sunk in that I'm only ever dealing with that tiny mad idea. I'm not really dealing with you. I'm not really dealing with the situation across the room. I'm dealing with that tiny mad idea. And, Jesus talks about how it takes he says little willingness, right? But you have to remember, this is the same guy that said that the tiny mad idea created the whole universe. So really, it's perspective, right? Because sometimes and he does say it later, it takes great willingness to lay down being right, to lay down your judgments, to lay down your victimhood. It's so strong because that is what the ego is, right? It's a fearful thought, and that fear is the huge umbrella for everything that we think is wrong, everything that we think is not fair, everything that we think can affect us. That's what that's playing out, is that, and it's our belief, right? It's our belief. So it's our choice. It is totally our choice. And sometimes, it doesn't feel like it's your choice. It feels like you're just actually in the presence of somebody who's just a complete idiot, who is victimizing you, who is not fair, who is, it goes on and on. We all know. We've lived long enough to know. We've been through so many experiences of this, right? It's just this constant loop. And it's really actually the same experience. It's just disguised in another form. And it's almost like that game whack-a-mole, when you hit one mole, another mole pops its head up, right? Because we have to go beyond trying to work it out horizontally. It will never, ever work out horizontally. Of course, if we're using each other for forgiveness, for this deeper practice, then of course, it seems like we're working something with somebody else. But that's purpose. That's when purpose comes in, purpose. And what's that purpose? Do we have a shared purpose? Because if we don't have a shared purpose, there's really no reason to hang out together. That's really what the Course is saying. You have to look at all your relationships. How are they serving your awakening? And are they serving your awakening? And if they're not, then you just get to look at it and go, what is it that I'm hanging on to? Something that reinforces my sleeping, or something that reinforces my awakening? And I know that at one point in my life I had to get real serious about that question. Real serious about that question, because I had a whole queendom. I had a spiritual retreat center. I had a husband. I had animals. I had family. I had built, a whole life. And when I was presented with that question, does it help? Do all the relationships that you have, do they help? Does your job help? Or does it continually reinforce the sleeping of the dream? And it takes a tremendous amount of trust to start to question those ideas in your mind, right? It takes a tremendous amount of trust to say, I just want to look at this relationship. And at the time I had a beautiful husband. It was a wonderful person, would bring me my Course in Miracles and say, you might want to do your lesson now. Would help at the spiritual retreat center, but was not at all interested in spirituality. And so when I really made that decision, like, oh my gosh, I really, I had a deep calling. I really wanted to feel this union with God. And if the Course in Miracles spends 9 chapters on specialness, and for most of my life with the Course in Miracles, I didn't read that part, I guess. I really didn't read that part. Because I remember one day David at a retreat, because I had invited David to, I didn't know him very well, I had invited him to come to the retreat center to do a retreat. That was all. Complete shift of my life, but that was all. And we were just sitting, and he asked me, I think Jason asked me actually, but how does Chris fit into all this? This was my husband. And I said, oh, he's wonderful. And I just went on and on and on with all these accolades. And then David sat up and he said, wow, I can't imagine getting that from a person. And it was a crack in the cosmic egg in my mind. It was one of those moments where I just had to, it just stunned me. Because there was something it must have been one of those things in the plan that, it was that moment. And that's when I realized, my gosh, have I just been skipping all these chapters in the Course in Miracles? And, I remember one day with Chris, I said, would you ever like to look at things differently? Right? Just real basic. He was from Brooklyn. He was blue collar. If a guy's an asshole, he's just an asshole, Suzanne. That's all there is to it. And that's what he said to me. And I was like, okay. And he's happy. He was fine. He wasn't like, not me. I had this search, right? I used to envy him. Like, God, he's just fine. Well, he was miserable most of the time, but you know what I mean. He was okay with his misery. And so when that question came, I really was serious. It's like, you know what? You can dabble in spirituality, and that's fine, and it's definitely a stepping stone. But at a certain point, it doesn't work anymore, right? It's almost like, you can hit the videos, you can do this, and you feel better for a minute, but really it's like, why are they having that experience and I'm not? Why are they, happy and I'm not? And there's these park bench awakenings, which are beautiful. I've had deep, profound merging with source experiences, but then I come back and I'm like, oh, I'm left with this feeling of discontent, right? And no matter how good it was, and it always was seemingly pretty good, I didn't have a difficult lifetime. But there was still that feeling of, I gotta go home. I don't know what this is, but I gotta go home. So there was some sort of part in the mind and the heart that could never be satisfied, right? No matter how good it was. And you probably all have had that experience where it's good for a minute and then you hit a ceiling. And then you gotta go recreate something else to get that. It's like chasing a high, right? And the world, the ego has, it has its happinesses, right? But they always have a ceiling, and I think we all know that. They always have a ceiling, right? Well, the spirit doesn't have a ceiling. When you turn your mind completely towards this beauty, this love, Yeah, you're going to go through what you're going to go through, but it's all worth it. It really is worth it, and especially if you have mighty companions by your side who can support you through those times that are so dark you don't know if you can breathe. But there's no ceiling with the Spirit's plan. Because what it is forgiveness. Once we start to see that projection and bring it back, forgiveness prepares the mind. That's all it's doing. It says we will not be hurled into heaven. We can't be, because we would be screaming in terror, because we're so afraid of the light. We're not afraid of the light, but the ego is. And if we're identified with the ego, then there's terror. It's terrifying just to let your brother off the hook. I mean, we have to start with what we believe. So if there's judgment in the mind, my God, let's just start with that. But what forgiveness does, which is so inspiring, it's just the most inspiring thing ever, is that it prepares the mind to open up to this love that we're so terrified of, but it makes no sense. We don't think we're terrified of it. But when you get in touch with true love, it's so vast, it's so big, right? It's not love of this world. Love of this world is just crumbs. It's need, it's fear, it's death, actually. If you read the chapters, it's actually death. It's, I need you to validate me. And what is looking for that validation but the tiny mad idea? And the tiny mad idea will never, ever get validated. And that's why relationships don't work. Relationships can't work unless there's purpose. Oh yeah, you can spend 50 years together, and the world calls that, they look at them, they stayed together. Those bodies are together. Now they don't, particularly like each other, and some maybe do. But there's this deep, profound love that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about comfort of another body being in the room with you. Maybe, taking care of you, things like that. I'm talking about a love that is so pure and unites everything. And there's no need, there's no want, there's no plan. You just bask in it. And in order to have that experience of, and that's who you are, we all know that. These are all words that we've read, right? And I guess I'm just speaking to the part of the mind that hasn't released or hasn't gotten into a true vertical alignment. Like maybe you're having a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a little happiness, a little unhappiness, but you're in this room for a reason, and I can't help but think that if that reason can only be one thing, and that is that you want a deeper sense of safety, a deeper sense of love, a deeper sense of peace. And what is so beautiful about the Course in Miracles is it simply teaches us how to forgive and come into a state of the happy dream. It says that's its whole intention. Okay, so like me, I lived in a distortion for quite some time, quite many years actually, that I wanted this world to disappear. And I wanted to go into that abstract light, which I had been in, right? And I had to let go of that. And I heard very clearly some years ago, I have to accept the happy dream. I didn't want to. I just wanted God. So the ego hijacked that part of my mind. And so then it was like, oh my God, I'm not trying to get out of here anymore. I'm not trying to leave this realm of illusion. It's almost like the illusion is disappearing, and the illusion is the madness, right, in the mind. That's really what the illusion is the fear. And so the perception comes into right perception, right-mindedness. And so you're not living with stress. You're not living with control. It does become easy as breathing. I mean, I can completely witness to that. There is no reason to ever feel like you have to figure something out if you're living in a space of the forgiven dream. And so while we're pointing the ship in that direction and we're turning, it can be quite intense, because it really, think about it, you guys. If Jesus says it's a total reversal of thinking, if you just sat with that alone, what does that really mean? That's pretty profound. Like, a reversal of thinking must mean that what's on this side of it isn't true on any level. He actually says that perception is completely unnecessary. That's profound. He says many profound things. And the main thing he says over and over and over, and I think if I did a word search on it, probably says it more than anything, is that we're insane. He says insanity more times in that book than he does love.
Very crazy.
And I think that we've all lived long enough that we know the insanity. We know the insanity, but there's some sort of comfort in the insanity. And until you hit a certain point where it's like, truly like Helen and Bill, there's got to be a better way. There has to be a better way. And that better way is forgiveness. That better way is recognizing that what my brother has done to me has not occurred. And that is profoundly metaphysically deep. But oh my God, what a relief when you see that whatever your brother has acted out for you, no matter how horrific it might be, is a projection of that tear of the belief in the tiny mad idea. It's that horrifying. War, abuse, all of it. Pedophilia, all of it. It's all coming to surface now because I think we're doing the work, right? And we're allowing this seeming darkness to come to the surface. So it's good news, It's good news. But it's a shift in mind. It's not a shift in the world. Okay, it's a shift in the mind because the world is within you. And as long as you're identified with that false identity, and it's just a sad case of mistaken identity, that's all it is. And so we have so much help now. We have each other. We have this profound work of A Course in Miracles, and no, it's not the only way. It's not. But it seems to be our way. Right? I'm not speaking for you, but it seems to be the way that's given in this moment. It's not confusing. It's very precise. This is all you need to do. And you know what's the best part about it is we don't do it. As we turn our mind over, there's that beautiful line in the Course about if you relinquish your thought system to me, basically I'll take your hand, right? But there's choices. It seems like there's choices when really there's only two. Do I forgive or do I stay in the loop of being a human? There is a Course lesson that says, I am spirit. I am spirit. I mean, it's so beautiful. That fear isn't real. Well, if fear isn't real, and you're afraid all the time, then a very good use of mind energy and focus would be to turn around and say, okay, Jesus, if fear isn't real, then I want that, I want to really experience that, which is very rough because sometimes it's like you have to turn around and face something, and it can feel so intense. And I think that's when the Mighty Companions come in, because we hold each other's hands. And we witness to each other. We don't make that real, but we also don't say it's just an illusion. Because when it's believed in, it seems very, very real. So saying to people it's just an illusion is not helpful at all. If it's believed in, it's real. Okay? That's the bottom line. Not ultimately real, but in that moment. So it's very unkind to say, oh yeah, it's just an illusion. It's like, for 10 years, I really never heard that in community with David, that it was just an illusion. Now, ultimately, yes, that's true. And ultimately, at a certain point in your path, you do have to start to entertain that, like, oh, wow, And I really kind of feel like that's what I'm offering, is this, because I keep hearing it, and every gathering that we've had, it's come up, is that it's good to just at least have it in your mind. Like, okay, this that's coming at me isn't true. So how do I see it differently? How do I, and that when I say you don't do it, which it seems like a daunting task if you think it's you that has to make it all right, the you that's identified with that problem. But you know what? I had a beautiful experience this week with this very, very thing. I have a beautiful friend, lives in Slovenia, who came to our retreat in Portugal. And he's trying to wrap up his life. He's trying to get to Mexico, actually. And he was going to meet with some business people. because he's selling his company. It's quite a big thing, right? So he's trying to unwind, right? And so we have all these beautiful metaphysical discussions, and it's lovely. And then he said, "Oh, I got to put on my business hat." I said, "Oh, no, no, no. Don't do that." You know, you can't categorize. It's all your mind. How are you going to see this? Can you open up to the miracle? You have no idea why you're driving 3 hours to pick this guy up at the airport. You think it's about a business. You have no idea, right? And so he went, and he sent me an audio that I'm going to play for you guys. But I wanted to set up, he sent me an audio sharing of his experience. And I want to set it up before we play it. It's only 8 minutes long. But it contains everything. It really contains everything. It contains the simplicity. But if you have a lot of pride, and you have a lot of I know mind, and I know what's right and what's wrong, and I'm going to actually, and I know what's right and wrong for you, that's always a good one for somebody else. If you can just open your mind up, and that's that tiny willingness, right? That's that tiny little stepping back, and I will let him lead the way. And just to be open-minded, like that maybe you don't know. Like maybe you don't know. And in fact, I share a little parable from a beautiful teacher. Some of you know, he's passed recently, Tom Carpenter. He came to my retreat center so many years ago. And he told this story, and in fact, Laverne made a video out of it. It's such an amazing story that there was a nurse that was working the night shift in New York. And she didn't like working the night shift because she had to take the subway, and she was always afraid. She was afraid she was going to be attacked on the subway. She had just a deep fear of being attacked on the subway, and so she got on the subway, and she was the only one on besides some really scary looking guy over in the corner, right? And she's like, oh my God, I know he's going to attack me. You know, she's just these thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. And she was telling Tom Carpenter this parable. And so she said she, would get to the stop, and then she would hope that he would get off, right? Just get off. And that'll alleviate my fear if you disappear. That's how many of us think that way, right? If you just go away, my life would be great. That's not going to happen. So then finally, like 3 stops, she has to get off, right? It's her stop. And so she stepped off, and of course he got up, followed her off, and she just said that prayer because she had been in some gathering with Tom Carpenter. She paused. She just allowed that prayer to go up, as small as it was. And she found herself turning to this guy and saying, I'm really afraid of walking to my house by myself. Will you walk to my house with me? And she just about couldn't even believe the words were coming out of her mouth, right? And he looked at her and he said yes. So they walked. It wasn't very far. And she got to the door. She put in the key, and she turned to him and she says, I have to apologize. She goes, I thought you were going to attack me. And he said, I was.
Oh. Oh.
This is the power that we deny every day. This is the power we deny every day. We actually are walking around with superpowers. And it's so simple, you guys. It's just a simple openness, that little willingness to say, I want you to decide for me, because I don't know what to do here. So I want to play this. I think it's such a beautiful thing. And I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I need to set up. He was driving 3 hours from Slovenia to Croatia to the airport, and he got stuck in a traffic jam. and he was afraid he was going to be late. And so I had to really listen deeply to kind of remind myself of those experiences of when you really feel that kind of intensity. You're going to an important meeting, you think you have to say all the right things. But we had joined, and he was really, really open. Felt like it was really open. So I was so happy to get this recording.
I'm just trying to put together some impressions about today's visit of Mr. Isidore. It was really interesting, as I was afraid while I was driving to the airport and being stuck in congestions. I was thinking about how I would react, how I would behave while I was still under the influence of that intense connection.
Okay, I just wanted to say here that he had had a deep mystical experience, like the day of or the day before. So he had gone into this kind of really profound experience, and so he was still kind of, so you can go from that to a business meeting, right? Okay.
That were happening in totally other plane of reality. But then suddenly, when I finally got out of this congestions, some other thoughts came on my mind. I was just thinking about how I really don't know what it will happen, but it's up to me to decide how I will set up my mind about the situation. And it was really funny. I arrived exactly at the time when the aircraft was landing. Actually, just landed. So this was the first synchronicity that appeared. Okay, then I was waited quite a long for him to appear on this hall, and I was a little bit tired from driving there and so on. Maybe this contributed too, but I was just reacting so spontaneously. I didn't have any energy left for all those roles to play.
I just wanted to say this is a very significant part too. I didn't have any more energy for all of those roles to play. There's something very beautiful about that. Like, there's a surrender. And sometimes life really does, it's almost like if we're hard nuts to crack, it's the Zen stick comes and it's just this deep surrender.
I was just behaving as I felt it's right to at this moment. And surprisingly enough, in 15 minutes we were talking about life, about I don't know what. I told him about my daughter.
His daughter had died.
I was just sharing. And he was just responding. This was wow. And then I began to realize what was happening. This connection, spontaneous connection with someone who I first met in life I really didn't know much about him, especially not some personal things. But as I said, this spontaneous behavior just triggered that connection. I just didn't want to be what I'm not.
I just want to take that for a minute. I just did not want to be what I am not. It's so beautiful.
And this was some kind of a miracle. Okay, then we have another incident at the border where we arrived at the border half an hour after midnight, 30 minutes after midnight. So, but at midnight, in Slovenia, other regulation about this corona situation was in charge. So it was released just a day before. But and we came there. He would normally had to stay in quarantine then to this new, because he is coming from the non-safe countries. But this policeman was just so confused. We were talking a little about this. He just didn't know what he would do. And then I again said, okay, whatever will happen will be okay. I don't know. And then suddenly he said, okay guys, you were simply not here. I don't want to see you. Will just, I don't know what to do. You just go. You just go. And he let us without showing any papers at all. And so it was really funny. And so today then we had this meeting, and during this time we spent together, we almost became friends. I don't know. He realized this. He said, we are almost friends now. And in this his sympathetically funny French accent, you know. It was really a fun experience. So, and then I was thinking, now when I'm recording this, why this so worldly business as selling the company, where all of it is about figures and numbers, projections and plans, and all sorts of these boring things. Why wouldn't I take it from the other perspective? That can be fun too. When I was talking with him, I was just not listening his words, but rather try to listen these feelings within me that arises when I'm in communication with him. And now when I want to sum up this whole process about this relationship, I don't have any real figures and numbers in mind now, because we are not in that stage yet. But I have another quality of information stored. This is on pure feeling basis. How this communication felt, how this connection actually felt. And this is something I can handle with more directly, you know. I can shape that feeling maybe better. As going through all these chains of changing beliefs about this or that. So in this shaping the feeling, then I can involve the Spirit to come in, or to Jesus to come in. Because now we are on this field of direct experience. And so this is very, very good exercise actually. And well, I somehow lost the clue, but okay, this feeling, this is the essence. So I will try to build this relationship further upon these feelings, not so much upon these hard facts like figures and numbers. So that's it. That I wanted to share with you. Love.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's almost like you can, through these parables, they're so powerful. And really, what instigates them is so simple. It's really simple. But we have to have this relationship with that inner light, and we build that by these types of experiences. We have to be convinced. We have to be convinced that what we're leaving behind is not the truth of who we are. We have to be convinced of that, and the Spirit does convince us as we let down our guard. Because you see, underneath it all, we're protecting fear. And we're protecting this fear because we think it's us. We think it's us, and so we have to take care of it, right? We have to take care of that. We have to take care of that uncertainty. We have to take care of that insecurity. We have to take care of that guilt. And so we build our lives around it. We have structures that house us, and relationships that buoy us up, and jobs that seem to provide us with our security. And they're all just there to reinforce. If we believe in them, if we believe that they are necessary for our peace, then we will never get out of this loop of self-protection, and we're protecting a tiny self. We're not protecting the truth. The truth needs no protection. So he goes. It's such a beautiful sharing. I'm so glad that he recorded it, because I knew it would bless many. It's this sincerity of, okay, I just will open up my mind this much and have a different experience. So, and like the woman in the subway, profound experiences. We should have a gathering sometime where we just share parables of healing. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Mm-hmm. Where we just come with our very most profound shifts. Because that's all the miracle is. It's not, I got this, it's a miracle. It's no, I got this inner beauty. I got this, I can feel this, I'm in touch with this. And then the whole world looks beautiful. I'm telling you, it's not like there's, it's like this, it's a reflection. And then you start pulling forth reflections of that love and that goodness and that joy and that right action in every situation. You start pulling forth those witnesses because you're purifying the lens of your perception, you're purifying your mind. It's just a distorted, darkened glass that we look through, and then we try to make sense out of it, but the truth of who we are is just right there, always. It's the love affair we want to engage in. It's the love affair that's worthy of our full intent It's worthy of our full intent. And so we practice, right? And the more you practice forgiveness and pulling that projection back, and maybe you don't understand it, like it just seems so real, then you have help, you know. Like I said in one of the gatherings, there's no excuse anymore. There's so much mind support to help you unwind from certain beliefs. And I've sat for many, many hours with many, many ones who could, like a surgeon, would go in and help me see where that distortion was. And some of you are ready to just sit with the experience and know that it's all the same. The experience of conflict, fear is all the same. It's dressed up in another situation, but maybe you're far enough along with your mind training that now it's time to sit with that energy. It is just the energy of the tiny mad idea. It's not to be denied. It's not to be pushed away. It's to be allowed up into your awareness, into the light of who you are. It's like, I will step back and I will allow this. There's no more trying to fix it. There's no more trying to heal it. It's just, it's way too stressful. It's like it's this deep allowance. Deep, deep allowance. And it's uncomfortable. And people don't want to feel uncomfortable because the ego is an uncomfortable thought, and as long as you're identified with that uncomfortable thought, then you'll try to fix it and you'll try to surround it in some pink paint to make it feel better. So I'd really invite you to be okay with being uncomfortable, because this path is not comfortable. It becomes comfortable, becomes super comfortable. But while you're unwinding the mind from a false identification and the recognition that it's the tiny mad idea, it's the heart of all of it. And it's just the belief in the tiny mad idea that's at the heart of it. It's not a real force. What we think it is sure feels like that when you're presented with so much conflict. I mean, the world just generates it, right? It's like, oh, you got through that, here, have another one. So, and you know, this prayer of forgiveness, it's everything. It is the superpower. It is, I don't want to feel like this. I don't care about being right anymore. I'm willing to let the rightness go. I just don't want to feel this anymore. Well, okay, that's a good step. Now let's feel it. Let's allow it. Let's allow those feelings instead of trying to throw the pink paint on them. Let's allow them to come into the forgiven mind. My favorite Bible quote, I say it all the time, is, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Now, I was in meditation one time, and that scripture came into my mind. And what that meant to me was that everything that I was experiencing, I could bring, every thought I was having, because my mind was like a monkey mind, it could all come unto me now, because I had enough light turned on in my mind. And call it what you will, Holy Spirit. You are the Holy Spirit, okay? The Holy Spirit is the connection with your divinity. That's all it is. It's you, okay? So we bring that light, we bring all those thoughts, and we begin this relationship. My God, this relationship with this light in your own mind. It's the most beautiful thing. It's the love affair that ends all love affairs. It takes care of you. It'll never leave you. It'll reassure you. It's worthy of you courting it, you know? It's worthy of dating that. So it's all good news, you know. We're so blessed. We're so extremely blessed to have this in our minds, to have this thing called A Course in Miracles appear in our minds as a breadcrumb of light that we follow. And the more we follow it, the lighter and brighter everything gets. So, and I know, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to add something to what you were saying around, just how much the desire plays in all of this. And there's this beautiful line in the Course in Miracles that says that truth will be returned to you by your desire.
That's it.
As it was lost to you by your desire for something else. And essentially, the desire for something else is this desire for this world, whatever it is in this world. And when we have this, call in our heart for this awakening, we go in that direction, everything that's something else comes in, it's kind of like this, okay, well, you still want this, and you still want that, and you still want this, and you still want that. It's coming up because it's actually coming up for question, to be able to say whether or not you still want something. And I just had this really powerful experience this week where, well, some time ago, I quit smoking. It was like 5 years ago. And it was the most simple thing ever. And it basically, there was this, I don't know if you ever heard of this book, if you ever smoked, it's called Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking. And it's just this, what it is just this small book. And all he's saying is, okay, you still want to keep smoking? Well, I'm going to just bring up all these reasons why you should think about that, rethink that idea, get relaxation, it gives you, stress release, and it, so he sort of just knocks off all of these reasons why, you want to quit. And once you get to that point, it just becomes a matter of just quitting. And so I recently started smoking again, and then I thought, I want to quit. And I thought, oh yeah, that book. So it's a short book. I read it again, and what I really saw, and what he even says in this book, is that the only reason you find it hard to quit smoking is because you still want to smoke. Like there's still a desire there. And so what he's saying is, I'm just bringing all of these other things up as reasons why, you wouldn't want to desire that. But what I really saw and what I really experienced with that was the cravings for cigarettes are nothing. The desire for the cigarette is everything. Like that's, if I still think I want to smoke, that's all I really want to think about. So
because it's going to give you all those things that you actually weren't consciously aware of.
Yeah, there's something I still think it gives me.
Yes.
And so that's even with anything like in this world. I mean, it's always being asked, okay, you're here, you something brought you here today, you want to awaken, this is showing up, and so everything that isn't that, other desire is going to come in. Do you still want this then? Do you still want that? And it isn't like you're thrust into heaven, but it is a continual sort of thing. Oh, you still want to travel? You still want to go to Peru? Let's go to Peru. You still want, to live in a tropical paradise? Let's do that. You want to go to the, it's kind of like bringing all these things in so that you can just look at it again. And, and most of everything in the world gives you some satisfaction for a while. But then, we know, like the Course even says, like all the roadways of the world lead to death.
To death.
I know it's pretty harsh, that Jesus says that, but he's like saying, well, you still think there's something here in this world that gives you something. Go try it out. Go try it out. Go try it out until you get to that point where your single-minded desire is to awaken. And we're all getting pushed into that direction, really. I mean, it's inevitable, but how quickly do you want to go for the straight shot? And being really honest if there are other things that you desire than awakening.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so revealing about the path, isn't it? Is you really, once you can see that you've been chasing something because it's going to give you something, right? You think it's going to give you happiness. Once you actually recognize that, then it's a lot easier to really start to question it. Like, okay, what is the motivation? Like Jesus says in the Course, ask in every situation, what is the motivation?
Yeah. And it's not like you have to play everything out in the world, too.
No.
It's like, okay, I'm being given an opportunity to go into another relationship, a romantic relationship. You can either go play that out and sort of in a specialness way, if it's being used for specialness, or you can just say, I already know that roadway where that roadway goes, and so I don't need to go down there. And that's why we can learn from the parables of others too. It's like, no, I don't have to go down that road because I know where it leads. If it's not for the purpose of awakening.
Yeah, I think that's when it really simplifies, doesn't it? When you say, what purpose does this serve? Does it help me to sleep, stay in the horizontal plane, or does it help me to awaken? So simple. So simple. So it's beautiful. And that craving, because it's all we seemingly remember and know, is very strong. Because it's like Jesus says somewhere in the Course about the spirit. It's kind of like the mother wants to take the scissors out of the baby's hands, but they're shiny and the baby's playing with the scissors. But even though it might hurt the baby, and then the baby screams out because it wants the scissors. That's us. Give me those scissors. I didn't do it quite well enough last time. Which is so beautiful because, there's no delay. Truly, you can experience delay while we believe in time. You truly can. And you can loop as long as you want to loop. But after a while, you finally just go, you know what, I'm so tired of this. It always is the same result. So.
Right. Yeah, and there's this beautiful line in the Course question that gets asked, and it's like, would you rather be right about how you set the world up, or would you rather be happy? And it's very humbling to say, well, wow, the way I set up this world is pretty messed up. I'm willing to be wrong about it.
Even with the best of intentions, right?
Yeah.
So it gets down to desire. That's a beautiful way to end this. It's and to even just sit with that. What is my true desire? Especially when you're up against something. What is my desire in this moment? And you can see the crazy mad idea in your head play out a billion different ways in any situation, any given situation. Well, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that. And just like Oros, when he was, in the traffic jam, he was like, how do I want to play? He looked at the choice, like he set up his mind before he got there. Like, he doesn't know. He didn't know how to do this. He didn't know how to do this. This is the first time he's at a business meeting where he allowed that I will step back and see what happens, have a different experience, not compartmentalizing certain parts of your life. If you have a spiritual life and then you have a business life, makes no sense at all. So.
But the fear keeps you in the compartmentalized
Sure
business
does.
life,
Because it feels like you have control, right?
I know this concept,
and I know
so
this
I'm gonna
role.
play it.
This role. Okay, now, because you can almost feel a certain part in that recording where, the roles he just couldn't do the roles anymore.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So everything is happening as it should, and guilt actually plays no part at all, and guilt is just in the experience of the tiny mad idea. And so what I would invite you to do when any kind of type of guilt comes up is just to recognize that that's what it is. And any kinds of problems that we seem to have in our life can be used. I always say there are no problems. There are actually no problems. It just simply means that something wants to come into clarity. That's all it means. So you need to go below the problem. You need to ask for the miracle and allow it to be given to you. Let it be given to you. You're not going to think it up. All of a sudden, something will just spark in your mind. And I really would like to do a gathering sometime where we all share our miracles. I think it would be really, really fun. And then maybe we could do some ecstatic dance after. So I thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. And yeah, we're just here. This is our life. I have no other purpose, nor does Laverne. And so if you ever feel to reach out, just please do. We're always available. This is our joy, is just to share so that we can strengthen it within ourselves. So we can share and strengthen it. There is a consistency of mind now, but I never make any claims. I could be on the floor tomorrow with something, but the difference now is I welcome it. I don't fight it. I don't think there's a problem. If there's some corner in my mind that still is still harboring some sort of identification with that which isn't true, I allow it. I allow it, and I welcome it. No judgment. This is a judgment-free zone here. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.